Hi guys! So last night was September 27th, the night that I have been waiting for months. It was the Once Upon a Time Season 5 premiere and I could not have been more excited. This episode was titled The Dark Swan. I still found it quite difficult knowing that was the title of the episode because of what was happening to my beloved Emma, but I had still been counting down the days till this episode aired because I just couldn't wait to see what happened next. So in this episode we witnessed Emma having been transported by the power of the Dark One to the Enchanted Forest, while Killian and her parents and Henry and Regina and everyone was still in Storybrooke. When Killian tries to summon her with the dagger, she doesn't appear, which then tells them that she's gone to another realm and they have to find a way to get there to track her down. The only way that they find to do this is with a wand left by Merlin. This wand has to be used by someone who has a lot of darkness in them, and Regina fails at that because she has come over to the good side. This means that they have to use Zelina's powers, much to Regina's rage, to try to get to Emma. In his desperation to get to Emma, Hook makes a deal with Zelina, which backfires. She escapes. She tries to take the wand for herself to get herself to Oz, but thankfully all works out well in the end and Regina manages to double cross her sister and get her to open the portal that gets them to Emma. Meanwhile, in the Enchanted Forest, Emma is struggling to kind of come to terms with what has happened to her, and what I really loved, and I'll talk about this more once I've kind of finished this summary, is how the darkness is representing itself to her so far. In the Enchanted Forest she meets Merida, who so far has had quite an interesting part to play. So eventually, after a lot of trials and tribulations, her family and a lot of members of the Storybrooke community managed to get to her in the Enchanted Forest. By the end of the episode they have been met by King Arthur, who is taking them to Camelot to help them find Merlin. Merlin seems to have prophesied that they were going to come to Camelot at this time, so it was no big surprise to King Arthur that they were there. And Merlin, who has been missing for a very long time, is said to come back when these people, Emma and her gang, appear in Camelot. But by the end of the episode, 6 weeks have passed and Snow, Charming, Hook, Regina and the rest of the crew get transported back to Storybrooke with no memory of what has happened to them over the past 6 weeks. So totally paralleling what happened in season 3, they have no memory of what happened to them over the past 6 weeks, but they are all dressed in kind of medieval Camelot style dress, and just as the episode ends, in bursts Emma in her full-on Dark One costume, basically telling them she's here to punish them for not managing to save her. So that's where we are by the end of the episode. That's a very kind of rough overview, and now I'm going to talk about all of the things that I loved about this episode. I've said ever since the season 4 finale that I was not on board with the Emma being the Dark One thing from the point of view of loving the character and her being my favourite character, but I did say that from a writing and kind of acting point of view I felt that it was going to present some really interesting opportunities for Jennifer Morrison and the rest of the cast to really turn things around in the show. Up till this point we've been so used to having Emma as our saviour character and our hero character, and then battling against a variety of villains. So we've had people like Regina who've gone from the dark side to become good, people like Rumple who have just fought against the darkness for the whole time and continually lost, and then evil people coming in like Zelina to cause chaos for a short period of time that Emma and the gang have kind of managed to defeat. Whereas now there's something a lot more complicated and dark about it when it's a member of this very integral heroic group who has gone over to the dark side and is now struggling to kind of face what has happened to her. I thought that Jennifer Morrison did such a good job in this episode, because this is taking a character that she's played for the past 4 seasons as one person and creating this whole new different dark complex layer to them. And for this episode I think what was really good was we were given time to watch Emma try to process what's happened to her. We didn't just jump straight on in there with, oh, here's the start of season 5, Emma's completely villainous and evil, look at her ripping people's hearts out left, right and centre. It was very much taken as, let's take a beat here to see her kind of adjust to what's happened to her. One of my favourite things about the episode was how they had Rumpelstiltskin, Enchanted Forest style Rumpelstiltskin, as the Dark One voice within Emma. So the darkness in her was kind of being represented to her as him telling her what to do. So telling her where to go, telling her how to get from A to B, telling her to kill Merida, all of these points that were, you know, really an externalised version of what was going on in Emma's head, but done by presenting her with Rumpelstiltskin. I thought this worked so well because I did wonder how they were going to work Rumple into it, because obviously back in Storybrooke Mr. Gold is in a coma because the Dark One powers have been taken from him and transported into Emma. So I did wonder what they were going to do with him when it came to the first part of season 5. But I think this has worked really well. I've always really enjoyed scenes with Jennifer Morrison and Robert Carlyle. I think they work quite well together on screen. I like that they kind of threw in that little moment where it was saying, oh, well, you know, I am in this form, but I guess I could be in this form, or I could be in that form. I could be any of the dark ones speaking to you at this point and giving you instructions on how to really embrace your darkness. You could see how conflicted she was, and you could see how hard she was fighting against this. And I think that real look of vulnerability on Jennifer Morrison's face when there were these moments that she was controlling people and she was, you know, strangling that man on the street that she'd asked for help, or she was ripping out Merida's heart. These moments that she didn't want to be doing, but she was fighting against this darkness that has kind of taken over inside her. So, as always, massive round of applause for Jennifer Morrison because she was fantastic. In that final scene when she marches into Granny's and tells them all what's what, tells them that they failed her, tells them that she's the Dark One and that's why she's doing this, it just gave me chills, and honestly, I can't wait to see what happens next. I feel like I coped a lot better with it than I thought that I would, like, I guess because we had that moment to kind of adjust to what was going on and sort of adjust with her. I think I coped a little bit better than if they had just kind of thrown it in straight off the bat. Right, Emma has, you know, the darkness has overtaken her and this is what we're dealing with now. In terms of the rest of the acting, I thought it was great. Colin O'Donoghue did such a good job of that sort of desperation to save the women that he loves, but obviously fighting against his kind of own urges to kind of go over to the darkness. So making a deal with Zelena probably wasn't the most sensible thing to do, but he would do anything for Emma. And I think that that was done really, really nicely. A moment that I really enjoyed was when Emma had to make the decision of who was going to keep the dagger. I loved that her family trusted her with it and wanted to, you know, show her that they believed in her by having her hold on to the dagger. But I think she knew better, and she knew in herself that it wasn't the best idea. And I think that Regina was probably the best choice. While the kind of lovey-dovey Captain Swan shipper side of me would think, oh, but why couldn't you give the dagger to Killian? Or you think about it and go, oh, why wouldn't you give the dagger to your parents? She was right, the only viable person to give that to, who would have the strength to do what needed to be done if she went completely over to the dark side and was out of control, was Regina. Regina was the only one who, as Emma put it, would be able to get past her feelings and do what needed to be done. Hook wouldn't, her parents wouldn't, Henry wouldn't, they're all too close to her. Another aspect of the episode that I really enjoyed was that I felt that characters who'd maybe been sidelined a little bit throughout the past seasons were kind of given a platform to come back. We had Granny and Leroy and the rest of the dwarves really kind of coming back into it and saying, do you know what, no, we've not really had a part in this for the past little while. And I don't know if that was sort of reflective of genuinely what's happened with the script over the past couple of seasons, or, you know, if they just decided it would be fun to kind of have a bigger troop of people going back to Camelot. But either way, I thought that it was great. I loved that moment when Leroy was like, no, it's really sucks when people ask you how the adventure was and you say, I wasn't asked to go. So kind of bringing them back in. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I now just think Zelena is brilliant. One of my favourite moments in the episode was when Hook and Regina and Robin went to see Zelena to explain something's happened to Emma and we need, you know, we're going to need your help. She's just so insane. She's completely insane. But Rebecca Mader just does such a great job. She does seem sort of like crazed, but in a really sort of like, she doesn't have this sort of aggression to her. It's almost even creepier because she's always so kind of smiley and happy. And so I thought she was fantastic. I really, really love that she and Sean Maguire have been made series regulars now. They're not just guest stars. So I enjoyed that a lot. I really enjoyed the part that Merida had to play in the story so far. I felt that it worked really well to have Emma come up against another really strong kick-ass woman in her first kind of experience of dealing with her darkness, so she didn't come up against some sort of like vulnerable person who she wasn't quite sure how to handle herself. She came up against someone who would give as good as she got, and I thought that she was great. Visually, I thought this was a lovely episode because I really always enjoy scenes in the Enchanted Forest because I really enjoy those kind of like sweeping landscape shots. So when you've got a lot of kind of valleys and trees and mountains and that kind of thing, I'm always a big fan of those type of shots. Costume wise, I think it's going to be great. I really enjoyed the costume that Emma had so far, that kind of more medieval style dress. And then when we get into the next episode, I think it's going to be a lot more of the kind of all in black with the hair slicked back and the dark lip and everything, so it works well. She's a very beautiful dark one, which I enjoyed. The little moment between her and Hook where he was kind of like, yeah, thank goodness you didn't kind of turn Rumpelstiltskin style. So they had that little like flirty moment, which I liked because it just was kind of like a little moment of light relief in among the kind of heavier stuff. I loved the conversation that they had when he arrived just in time to stop her from killing Merida. So when her family and Regina and everyone's standing around and saying, look, don't do it, don't let the darkness overtake you. And then they had this really nice little moment where he kind of just stood and talked to her and told her, no, don't do it. And then they had a nice little hug and it was just lovely. So very big thumbs up for that. Also some nice Outlaw Queen scenes, nice moments between Robin and Regina. I really enjoyed the fact that he instantly knew when Zelena was kind of in her Regina guise that it wasn't her. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, romance wise, always getting a thumbs up from me. It worked really nicely. Another thing I liked was the bringing the rose in for the Beauty and the Beast storyline. So I liked that the Blue Fairy gives Belle this rose to say, as long as there's petals on this rose, he is alive. So I felt that that was quite nice. It was a nice way of bringing in another really recognisable element of one of these stories into the show. So in terms of next week, I feel it's going to have a very different tone. This episode was very much that kind of desperate fight to keep the darkness out of Emma, whereas next week I feel we're going to be plunged straight headfirst into proper Dark Swan territory. I think that this has been a genius storyline turn on the part of the writers, and while I was horrified by it to begin with, I feel like it's going to make for a really exciting season. So my camera battery is about to die. It is flashing in the screen to tell me that I've got hardly any time left to film. So instead of rambling on, as I so often do, I'm going to leave it there. I thought the episode was incredible. What did you think? Let me know in the comments down below if you've watched it and how you felt about it. Let me know what your favourite moments were, if there's anything that you didn't like quite so much, and what your hopes are for the rest of the season. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that you're having a great week, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye! Favourite couple? Very, very easy, like so easy. Hook and Emma, straight away. I am a massive Captain Swan shipper. You will know this if you've watched my Once Upon